Hi, folks. Before we begin, please be aware that we are recording this webinar. If you have any questions about the resources, we encourage you to follow up via email at support@electionsgroup.com. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Annie, and I'm an election expert with the Elections Group.
And I'm Rebecca, the Communications and Program Manager for the Elections Group.
For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, the Elections Group is an election administration consulting firm. We partner with state and local election officials to implement new programs or improve processes for voters and stakeholders. We provide guidance, resources, and direct management support for jurisdictions. Our team is made up of former election officials and election experts from across the United States. We're pleased to have you all with us today for our next highlight of resources for the election administration community. Each week we'll showcase resources from the Elections Group paired with resources from other organizations in the election space. Every 4 weeks, we'll focus on a different topic and we'll take a deeper dive into the resources available each week.
This month, we will focus on election administration, specifically due diligence. This week, we are highlighting the Election Group's Logic and Accuracy Testing Guide and the EAC's Quick Start Guide to Logic and Accuracy Testing. Let's get into the resources. Alrighty, for the first resource, we have our logic and accuracy testing. Election officials have been testing voting machines since the late 19th century when lever machines were first introduced. The first tests were purely mechanical, testing the accuracy of the equipment. When computer-based voting systems were introduced in the 1960s, testing the accurate functionality was no longer sufficient, so tests were added to verify the computer logic. The new practices are what we know today as logic and accuracy testing, or LNA, or FLAT. LNA testing seeks to prove the system and its components are accurate and performing as intended by comparing the voting system reports of the ballot scanner results to the known expected results. Problems discovered during LNA generally derive from issues with the data in the elections database being tested rather than issues in the software or firmware of the voting system. That is, the issue results from human errors made entering the election data in the preparation of testing materials or in the performance of the test. Errors are expected to be identified and resolved early through the testing process rather than later when voters are casting their ballots. Public demonstrations are usually the culmination of the testing process. Additionally, some jurisdictions also conduct LNA post-election, demonstrate and document that the system was not altered during the election period and performed accurately during the election. The sections in this document describe typical tests, how to conduct the tests, resources required, and effective processes for each type of equipment. Taken together, they offered a detailed description of every important phase of LNA testing, putting procedures in context and explaining why they're necessary. However, these suggestions are not a substitute for vendor-supplied instructions and staff checklists. Each voting system has unique aspects that must be addressed. Download our guide and get started today.
Thanks, Rebecca. The EAC's Quick Start Guides are intended to familiarize local election officials with various topics they will likely encounter in election administration. The guides are a starting point to identify areas of concern and give officials a broad idea of factors they should consider in approaching a given topic. The EAC's Logic and Accuracy Testing Guide provides essential steps to ensure voting equipment operates correctly before an election. Key areas include preparing test decks for each election type, documenting each step, and publicly demonstrating the process. Election administrators should check devices, including audio and accessibility functions, and conduct tests in pairs, verifying results and investigating any discrepancies. After testing, secure the equipment with seals, store test ballots separately, and publicize results. This guide helps ensure confidence in election readiness and compliance with regulatory requirements. Download the guide today to get started. We also wanted to highlight some examples in the wild of election offices across the country who are doing some really amazing work. Dallas County, Texas worked closely with their local media to highlight their public logic and accuracy testing. Public tests provide transparency by allowing the public and media to observe how machines are tested for accuracy and security. For election administrators, this approach exemplifies the commitment to openness, integrity, and proactive public engagement. This method helps election officials directly address any public concerns about machine accuracy and reinforces the reliability of the voting process. Kudos to Dallas County, Texas, and keep up the great work. And that's a wrap for today. Thank you to everyone for joining us, and thank you, Rebecca, for a great discussion. The resources mentioned in today's discussion have been shared. And as always, our inbox is always open if you have any additional questions. Please email us at support@electionsgroup.com. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.